turning back.
Lost Boy Scouts podcast.
That's what I meant to say. That's what I meant to say.
How are we?
Good. We just had a little corporate. We just had a little corporate
We
meeting.
did have a corporate meeting. Yeah,
And,
we did.
we got a good topic tonight.
We
You
do.
got some stories you want to share?
Yeah.
Or did you have an announcement? Sorry, what you
So
were?
yeah, let's couple things on the super fights. We'd like to just I've been asking for help, and Tyler's kind of helped me in just how to approach these kind of things. Asking for money is never an easy thing, right? But kind of like I was telling one of them gentlemen I was talking to today, if you're an MMA fan, you understand what a layman can watch MMA and kind of be excited about it, right?
Yeah.
When you're a jiu-jitsu competitor, like most of the time at jiu-jitsu events, it's jiu-jitsu people. So they're knowledgeable about the fights, but it's not like you're getting a lot of accolades, right? So we, when we do these promotions, when we do these events and these super fights, we try to make it so that the fighters make as much money as possible. And I think we do a really good job of paying black belts, brown belts, purple belts. I think we do a good job, and we're right up there with most of the events. Like, kind of interesting if you look at like ADCC and what's going on with ADCC and CJI, right? The whole thing about it is like Craig Jones is saying, I want the athletes to make money.
Yeah.
I want them to make more money.
Yeah.
And when I listened to the podcast with Craig Jones and Fionn Davis today, it's like the women, she was surprised. She was caught off guard by how much more the men made from her, and she won the event, right? So whenever you're this trying to find money and trying to do this, it's like, how can I sell it? How can I explain to you? Well, usually what I do is I try to find like, you're stoked on this person, right? And so you're like, oh man, I know this person. Yeah, I'll sponsor that.
Which is really, I mean, that's how all sports works, right? That is sports marketing in a nutshell, right?
For sure.
It's eyeballs,
you
know, and I was talking about soccer at work with some colleagues, and I'm like, I'd much prefer to watch girls soccer over boys soccer. Like, don't get me wrong, I want to see Mia Hamm score that game winner and strip her tarp off, and I don't want to see that on the guy's side. But it unfortunately just comes down to eyeballs. If you don't have the eyeballs, you don't have the advertising dollars, you don't have the money.
Fionn said that today. She said, I get it. I'm not going to make as much money as Gordon because Gordon has more views.
Right.
And she's talking about views. Like, that's how and I'm thinking, man, it's cool that Craig is doing that. I mean, it's weird to me, like, that they're doing it on the same weekend, but then he's like, okay, I'm doing it 2 days before. You can still make the finals. Like, you can still do things. And so that is how I take the approach first, is like, I call people and like, hey, this is who's fighting. Are you invested in this person? Yes. Yes, I'm stoked on that person. And today I finally solidified all of the fights. I have all of the money squared away for the super fights. And man, I hope we can continue to do super fights. I think it's great. I'm lucky because Tristan is on the card. You know, he's getting a super fight. So I'm gonna make it a couple, like, this is who's sponsoring the event is Scores Bar. Corey's always up for that.
Scores, the only bar in Utah County.
Yeah, and like the way he's turned that around. Have you been to that backyard patio?
It's been a minute, probably since last summer. I haven't been out there.
He built the awnings, and he has tables, and he was kind of explaining to me some of the things of why they did the way that they did it.
Yeah.
So if you get into a bar fight at that bar, you are excommunicated for life. You are no longer allowed in that bar. If you cause a ruckus in that bar, you are no longer invited. So he was telling me, like, the first couple of months, all the locals, all the guys that have been coming there 20 years, kicked out, never allowed back. Lifetime ban. Wow. Lifetime ban. You go in there and you cause a disruption.
Is that a state thing, or is that just his rule? That's his rule.
That's his rule. And the cops were like, thank you. Yeah. We have not been over here that much, and we are appreciative of you. Yeah. So great job, Corey. Our podcast, of course, we had a silent donor who put up the money for a black belt fight and wanted the podcast because he's a huge listener, and we're appreciative of him.
Yeah, thank you.
He wanted our podcast to be a part of that. Park City Baseball Academy is a sponsor for the fights. Blade HQ, a sponsor for the fight. Cool. couple families, the Carter family, the Parker family. They're always great about donating. The Barnhart family, great about donating. Stoned Ape Coffee and High Life Breathing are a part of the are part of that whole thing. Nice. And so grateful for that. We'll have some banners for their companies. We'll have some social media posts with their brands. Give them a shout out. There's some other companies that want to be a part of it that are like wanting to donate, and so there's some more fights that may happen that, or we'll just donate that money to the camp and call it good. And it's gonna be great, man. Like I was talking to Mona yesterday, and it's gonna be a fun time. They're gonna do some cool things for the comp, and there's gonna be some heavy hitters there.
When is the comp night?
So the comp is Friday night.
Friday the
19th. So we're gonna do two sessions, and then we'll break down the mats, put it into the competition arena, and no coaches is what I heard. No coaches, and they're gonna do some broadcasting with some of the. I think they're gonna do a YouTube live for people that can't make it. It's not gonna be like a big where we can have a lot of people in there because we have so many camp attendees.
Yeah,
like we're not gonna have a big crowd. That's the other part is like it's hard to sell that.
This is only for camp attendees, so hard to get that sponsored.
It's a big. Yeah, you're trying to make this a bonus for these guys flying across the country to come to Park City and learn some jiu-jitsu from these amazing masters, and so that was cool today to finish that conversation, to finish that, to nail that down, because usually it takes me right up until almost showtime to get some to get the sponsorships ironed out, and I've got 6 weeks still. I can work on other things that I need to, and so
nice,
man, it's cool. I appreciate all the advice and all the help that everybody gives me, and like the trust that Mike and Mona give me to help be a part of this. It's
awesome.
Amazing. Yeah,
I just barely got signed up this week.
You did?
Yeah, I signed up yesterday or the day before.
Yeah,
I'm excited to go.
Yeah, so we have that huge response from last week's podcast. I got so many people telling us how amazing that podcast came across.
It was such an interesting topic. I got a lot of feedback myself. Some good, some bad. Sure. I think what's interesting to me about that is that we talked about our need for benevolence, and I think that point might have been lost on some people. Like, know you're capable of darkness, but be benevolent.
Right.
And the benevolence showing through is what people need to respect.
Agreed.
If you don't respect my benevolence, then that's kind of on you.
I have to show you a different level.
Yeah.
And part of what, as we go on, you're going to give a little bit more grace and leeway to people, knowing that they see your worst sides.
Right.
Like you've seen some of my worst, me at my worst. You've seen me as a friend where you're like, hey dude,
this doesn't feel,
this energy is not good.
Yeah, no, this doesn't feel
and
good.
Vice versa. I've seen the same thing from you, and we've seen these things, but you're like, man, when you show grace and you're like, dude, thank you so much and you actually give a thank you, but just because I show it to you doesn't mean that we're good.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that is still very much do not take that for granted. Never. I may look peaceful, but I'm definitely the warrior in the garden and not the gardener in the war.
Yeah, for sure. And so man, I really appreciate the feedback that we get from names Marcus. Marcus, man, we really appreciate you sharing our podcast. I hope all the guys on the crew listen to us, and we're giving you guys a shout out right now because thank you guys for listening to us. Thank you for giving your feedback. Thank you for encouraging Tyler and I to continue down this path, because we have so many more topics and so many more things to discuss and so many more situations to be a part of, and we're just barely starting. We're barely scratching the surface of what we want to ensure for our common unity or our community and for the men in our life. We're not we're not like shying away from our women friend because we have some guests that we plan to have on that are women, but for the most part, like we don't know how we can't live in that world because we don't see the world through their eyes.
I think it's just important for us to have these conversations as men. Yeah. They just have not gotten the attention that they need. Right. Yeah, and so, sure. We can appreciate a shared space for the opposite, but I think as much as women kind of need their own space, like men need their own space to kind of beat their drum and, howl at the moon or whatever it is they got to do to kind of
whatever they need to do.
Yeah. To get the vibe going. So
yeah, being a dude is hard. Being a guy is like not easy because there's so many expectations and so many things that you're trying to walk and navigate through. And we just want to ensure that like a safe place for, hey man, we know where to go if we're having a rough day. We know how to, sometimes it's just go to sleep and hope for another day.
Yeah.
Right. Like tomorrow's going to come,
Yeah. I wanted to ask, like, I ruminated a lot. I was texting my mom at midnight last night and I said, a man's mind is his worst prison and nothing kills a man faster than his own thoughts. Sure. And like, I can think of several scenarios and I'd love to ask my former partner, my future partner, like, how often have you stayed up worried that, you're not providing a big enough house for your children or you're not providing enough food for your children.
Yeah.
And that's not to disparage them, but like men have this need they have this expectation that not only are they provider anymore, but they're coming home and they're sharing the child rearing duties with the missus who's been at home all day.
Yeah.
There was definitely expectations in previous relationships where I'd come home after working my full-time job, and I'd have to make sure that I help put dinner on the table, that I help set the table, that I help clean the house and or discipline the children. It wasn't kind of this the expectation of like this 40s and 50s like Leave It to Beaver where June, whatever her name is like she's got dinner on the table as soon as the man walks in and the house is all tidy and clean. Like, no, we've evolved now where there is this expectation that men are participating in the home duties, not just mowing the lawn.
I would say like even in like Heber, maybe in other places, but like both people have to leave to go to work.
It's
right.
It's sadly, it is unfortunately that's where we've progressed to. I don't know whether it's, I mean, my hunch is that there's like this toxic individualism, right? That we as a society have prioritized money, wealth, and what it looks like over, the alternative, which is that kind of at home single income family.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's inflation. I don't know if it's a myriad of factors. Like there's probably more than one. I don't know if it's the women's suffrage movement. Like, and again, this is not a topic I particularly can speak intelligently about, like women wanting to be equals. And, I'm assuming there's a lot of factors, but you're absolutely right. In this economy now, man, the average home here in Wasatch County is something like $800,000.
Yeah, crazy.
Very few median income families can afford to live that.
I was so lucky because my career provided the opportunity for Misty to stay home and, be a mom to both the boys. Braxton was older, so he didn't, when he was younger, she had to work a little bit. And we came together as, after Braxton was, we had Braxton and then we split up and then we came back together. And so she was used to working, so she wanted to work until like there were some issues that happened. And then we were both like, why don't you just stay home? Why don't you just stay home and like take care of the house and I'll go to work? And I was lucky, man. Like, she was able to do that, and both my boys, like they'll talk about like how the fact that their mom was always there. If they, when they were cutting weight, she made them lunches, took them lunches to school every day. If they needed anything for wrestling tournaments, she did it, and it was an understanding. Like, there was no expectation for Danny to do any of those things. Like if I did them, she was cool about it, but for the most part, she knew that was just what she had to do. And she'll talk sometimes like about how 3 or 4 times a day she's running back and forth from the high school, and I don't know if Cammie had the same kind of thing, if she had to work or if she was able to stay home.
We designed our lifestyle to our best ability. We designed our lifestyle to our best ability. I don't want to go too deep into it because I don't want to tell her story, and I don't, I've got to do my best to not include her in the podcast moving forward. So, I felt like quite often like I was never enough.
Yeah.
Like there was a constant pressure to look like something else. And
I think a lot of guys go through, man, like like you're saying, like keeping up with the Joneses type thing, and the expectation of like, no, we need that new car. No, we need that bigger house.
Why can't you just make more money?
Yeah, make more money.
Like,
go ask your boss for a bigger raise. Like, it's like, man, that's not how
it's interesting too. Growing up here in Utah, there's a lot of family wealth.
Oh yeah,
which creates kind of the superficial.
Oh yeah,
the superficial expectations, and I think that's another very difficult aspect to overcome. And when you're in Utah and you're a member of the LDS faith, like your network shrinks, and so all of those things are compounded more. There's like this real concept of like Mormon royalty.
Yeah.
Right. When you've got generational family wealth. And this is a concept I'm learning now. Like as I realize what I want to give my kids, I don't want to just give my kids money. That is not family wealth. Giving my kids the understanding of how to build and maintain wealth.
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to cut them a check. Here's a check every month. You go spend it. That's cool. But that's kind of a cop-out.
Sure.
That's kind of a bitch move.
Yeah.
No, I want to teach you, son and or daughter, here's how you take what I give you. Maybe there's this check, but it's also attached to, here's some knowledge.
Yeah.
Go deploy this in this means.
Yeah.
Do something with it. Don't just go blow it on vacations or buying a Range Rover or a bigger house or a boat or a jet ski. Like maybe that's what you want to do with that. That's fine. But like, I want you to understand, hey, you can take that and you can 10x it, or you can use that to build your own wealth.
Well, and I think like you and I we had to make our own livings, right? We had to bust our ass, right? So I often worry about providing my boys a life, like my lifestyle, right? Like I always tell them like, hey, this is your mom and I's lifestyle. Like, don't try to keep up with our lifestyle, and we, before the podcast, we had a conversation about like, when do you push your kids? Like, do you push your kids out of the nest? Do you like kick them out of the house? Do you like be there for them and understand that there's going to be some like criticism sometimes from people like, hey, you're being too this, you're being too that. And for me, I try to navigate in those waters of like what I didn't have, what I've already provided for my kids that I understand that I've provided for them, right? Like I don't want them living on the street.
No, I definitely, and I tell my children this, that my ceiling is your floor.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I want you to trust me enough to talk to me. If rent becomes too expensive, move home. But there are going to be ways that I'm going to challenge you as a human being. Yeah. And it may not always be easy for me, and it may not always be easy for you, but you can sure expect that, like, if things get desperate, if things get, you break up with the girl, come home. You lose the job, come home. Rent gets too expensive, come home. Right? But I'm going to force you, or I'm going to push you, not necessarily force you, but I'm going to push you to solve problems on your own.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll always be a sounding board, but I'm pushing you.
Yeah, I agree.
To develop yourself.
And I don't have like an empty pocketbook. Like I don't have an empty checkbook. I mean, like there's days.
Mine's definitely empty.
You and I've talked about
bottomless.
I'm like, man, am I living paycheck to paycheck right now? Like, I'm trying to retire in a couple of years. I'm trying to do some entrepreneurial shit, but for the most part, I'm like, okay, my checkbook is not your checkbook. Yeah. Now, there's times when my kids, like, of course, like my kids, I go on vacation and my kids are there, and my wife is always like, well, you told them to I'm covering all the restaurants, because I'm like, well, I don't want them. I have a hard time with that. We'll go on vacation. And I will get the bill. And if they try to cover the bill, then I'm like, don't you ever do that again. I'm covering. And I'm like, man, here I am telling them, you know.
Yeah. Maybe their contribution needs to be one meal out. Or,
Yeah, they do a pretty good job.
It's tough. It's tough. The kids don't come with instruction manuals. And I don't think that like, I personally believe that like my opinion doesn't matter with your kids and your opinion doesn't matter with my kids. Like, yes, I want to surround myself with people. The impetus of our earlier conversation, like to surround myself by people that are good. Like it takes a village, right? It takes a village to raise these people. And I mean, I think that's what that's what I clung to in the LDS church. That's why I went. It was this community of people that was stable. Right. They all seemed to have good jobs. They were well off. They went to college. They were educated. They were pretty looking. Like they all seem to have it together. I mean, you don't see the skeletons. You don't see the skeletons, but you want to surround yourself by people, and sometimes you have to vet those people, and you have to maybe take a peek in and see the skeletons.
Well, and like the fact of the matter is like you and I are so transparent, right? Yeah. Like, which is more real to me of like, I know we know things about each other, and we know that we have these things that we're like, okay, here's where my line is at.
Right.
This is where my line is at.
Right.
And go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Like if you cross that line, then that's my line.
Yeah.
Right. I see it all the time at my work. These poor kids that their families, like they're an air traffic controller and we make a good living, but they're the lowest paid of their siblings.
Wow.
And they have to keep up with that like facade of this brother that's a surgeon, this brother that's
that's tough.
This doctor, this brother that's a Delta pilot that's making $350,000 a year because it's a Delta pilot, and it's like we're making. I mean, compared to that kind of thing, they're like, man, I'm poor, and you can't go on the same family vacations, because I can't afford the shit that you're doing, and I think that's where guys, for sure, get into these like modes and man, like the scariest thing that to me is the scariest thing is anger. Mm-hmm. Anger is the scariest emotion that a man can have, because there's frustration, there's emotion, there's like all these things, but then there's anger, and anger is like uncontrolled.
Yeah.
It's usually like, I'm angry, I'm going to say, do, feel, be however I want to be, and I'm going to justify it because I'm angry. And it's something that I have worked really hard. I talked about this last podcast, being an angry person when I was younger, being an angry man when I was younger. Like I have still some nightmares about some of the things that I've done in my life or who I was in my life as an angry man, and then like I said, carrying the ears, the look of like a guy that will get down, and then feeding into that, and I literally just before I came here, I read an article about two men that got into a fight after a road rage. It was two road rage incidences in Utah over the weekend. Both of them with men that had died. Both of these road rage instances have come to the fruition of both men dying. The one that I am not stoked on, the one that is the most scariest to me, is these two men. One guy cuts the other man off. They chase each other into a neighborhood, get out and start fighting, start punching each other. Guy gets punched, falls, hits his head, goes into a coma. His kids are in the car. His kids watch this whole thing happen, and they watch their dad be put into an ambulance. Today found out that he died. This man got punched over a road rage incident and dies.
Yeah, just food for thought. Like we're all shitty drivers.
Yeah.
Yeah, like nobody out there is like Yeah, we are all shittier drivers. Let's cut each other some ease and grace. It's such a tragic story.
Gosh, man. Like what?
Such a tragic story.
Who do you feel bad for? Like the guy that these two guys are exchanging punches because that's what they think men are supposed to do because I'm angry. I'm angry at you. I can't show you grace. I can't show you any kind of like kindness.
Yeah.
I can't put myself into your shoes of what you're going through. So we just start exchanging punches. You get the best of me. I fall, hit my head. Now you are a murderer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, man, that is scary to me that we can get to that point.
Yeah.
I try my hardest to drive slow, to use my blinker. You and I were driving last week in my bus and we're going 55 miles an hour up the hill, right? And everybody's passing us and I'm like, just smile.
Yeah, just do it. Just do it. I've definitely been guilty of road rage. I think there was a different period of time where I was less connected to my nervous system, right? Yeah. And I think that shows, those type of incidents show a connection to your, or lack thereof, a connection to your nervous system.
I also have I've chased a person down, got out of the car.
Yeah.
And it's the worst feeling in the world.
When you look back on it, there are never instances where you're like, I'm super proud.
I'm so happy I did that.
Yeah. Mark Twain has a quote. I'm going to butcher it. Anger is a venom that is more dangerous for the container than what it's put on, something to that effect.
Yeah.
Like we hold on to this anger, and I'm guilty of holding a lot of resentment and anger. I think that post my brother passing, like I have had to really start facing some anger, where I felt like my boundaries have been violated, and it's my own fault, but I'm choosing to take that anger out on somebody else, and whether or not that person deserves that anger, they're catching the brunt of it, and it again, it's those instances where you don't feel great.
Yeah,
I can feel the anger sitting heavy in my chest.
Yeah,
and I can feel it is an anchor.
Yeah,
it is an anchor, and what it is it to me it just feels like what in my ego is trying to protect myself.
Yeah. It's almost like you feel like, well, nobody's protecting me. Nobody's sticking up for me.
Yeah.
So you know what? I'm going to put this armor on that is full on, battle ready, battle tested. Let's go. I'm not afraid. You ain't getting to me.
Right.
But I've got this sword and I'm going to start swinging it.
Right.
Right. And I myself as well, like work really hard and kind of what we talked about before we started recording. I know when I go to a point of anger and frustration, I don't come back very easily.
You're right.
I'm willing to see the end. I'm willing to see the end of this thing. And then I like all of a sudden, man, it's like, boom, snapped out of it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, man, I'm kind of tired. I'm kind of like beat up. And I'm like, man, I don't want them feelings again. And I want to like, man, I want to give you a hug. I want to be kind again, because I would much rather live in that world of happiness, smiling, just giggling, telling funny stories than this. I've got this armor on and I know what this armor's for. Right. This armor is for war. Right. And it's for battle. And like you said, sometimes the wrong person catches the blunt of that. And man, like, could you imagine like, and I'm sure you've done this. Like I've done this to Misty before, where like I've mad at work, mad at something, and I come home, and the next thing I know, I'm chewing her ass, and she's like, "I haven't even seen you. What the hell did I do?"
Yeah. Why am I catching this?
Why am I catching this? Why are you bringing this home? And I'm like, well, I'm invested now.
Yeah, they're collateral damage to our inability to handle.
Why couldn't you just tell me that your feelings were hurt?
Yeah.
Why couldn't I just say that? Why couldn't I say my feelings were hurt or I'm upset about this? Why can't I say that? Why can't I just voice that instead of like, nope, ready to fight?
Yeah.
You know, it's because we're not built that way. I don't think that we're given those. Maybe some people are given the idea, and man, maybe what if you see that person as a bitch? Like, man, this guy's always telling me it's not gonna be sad and that I hurt his feelings. Like, bitch, toughen up.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think too that conversely, right? Like if that's the approach they're going to take, right? Like, then do you really need to be that person's friend? Like, if that's going to be the response, I'm guessing probably not.
Yeah.
I'm guessing probably not, right? Like I have a small circle of friends on purpose, right? Yeah. Relationships have not been a safe space for me, particularly. So I have had to, one, really tune in my boundaries. What are my boundaries? And be willing to give some grace. If my boundaries are crossed, are we communicating solutions and seeking understanding for those boundaries? Or am I just projecting my hurt to make a point?
Right.
And it's not always easy. In the moment, it's like you feel it. You feel it well up, right? Like there's a reason we have this fight or flight system, right?
Yeah,
like
for sure.
It's necessary, right? Without it, I remember, without it, we may not get back on the mat. Without it, we may not have evolved as a species, right? We have to, unfortunately, and not unfortunately, we've evolved to a species that is like, we've got these incredibly beautiful brains that allow us to process so much information and so much nuance. And, prior to that evolution, like we just needed it to light a fire and hunt food. And, if we didn't have the fight or flight, we might've starved to death. Right. I got that urgency to find food, that urgency to procreate. Like now we have to be more nuanced in seeking to understand. And it's when I stop that seeking to understand, that's when I start to perhaps retract as in my knowledge.
Yeah.
If I'm not asking the right questions, this is where I have to slow myself down. This is my fault. This is purely something I struggle with.
Yeah.
How do I get more curious about a situation?
Yeah. And is it worth it? Right? Is it worth it?
Is it worth it?
Is it worth it? Is it worth my attention? Is it worth because I'm not the best of like, my circle of friends is small as well. And usually like if I don't care, like I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care about, if I hurt your feelings, I don't care.
Yeah.
If you're not in my circle of friends and I hurt your feelings, doesn't bother me one way or the other. And I have to remind myself like, that's not a good way to live.
Right.
Because what if I say something or do something to somebody who actually puts me in their circle of friends? Maybe I don't put them in my circle of friends and I show them that thing and they're in a moment of like vulnerability and I don't give them the correct response. And next thing I know, that person, goes deeper into their hole or goes further into their body of armor and they're not built for fighting, and they start to, inside that armor, start to beat the shit out of themselves. And I'm not able to see past my own bullshit, I think that's where the anger is the worst thing that happens because you're like married to the anger.
It's poisonous.
It's
poisonous. And it's interesting. And I think I can say this with a certain amount of safety. Growing up with a single mother, as I know you did, and as I did, like when you look at the statistics, and I have no substantiating evidence here to really, but I think if you look at the body of evidence for the men that get stuck in like these youth homes, these men that are atypically more violent, they tend to grow up with single mothers because they don't know how to process that anger in a healthy way. Yeah. And so it leaks out in very ugly ways, right? Sure. Or perhaps they have a man in their home who is violent, who doesn't, and who knows what his story was. And that's how that shit gets passed down from generation to generation. We see it, right? We see, hypothetically speaking, we see dad beating mom because his dad saw his dad beating his mom, right? Yeah, and that was acceptable behavior. Yeah. And not that that's ever acceptable behavior, but that's what was acceptable behavior in their ecosystem.
Yeah, for sure. Because there are things that you go, well, that's what I do in my house. Like that's right. Like, well, that's what, like maybe
that's how I grew up.
That's how I grew up. And so I pass that on and I don't even know that I'm passing it on. And as you grow and as you learn to be better, like you're always like a work in progress, like we were talking about last podcast. Like, we're not teaching, we're learning. Mm-hmm. And then what we're doing is we're teaching by example. We're like trying to strive to be these men that we're learning to be, right? And changing. And then what we're trying to do is teach our children the values that we would like encourage them to be around people with the same values, or maybe like different values that you're like, hey, I want you to like, I like that about you, so I'm cool with you hanging out with my kids.
Yeah.
Or I don't like you hanging out. You're not allowed in my house.
Well, and I mean, I think that's interesting. And like there's a saying, those that can't teach, right? Like, I think that's the thing. That is like the pitfall of teaching, right? And you said this in, I think, the last episode, that like, can you teach somebody when you don't really know, right? Like, and in very few circumstances, and I'm thinking sports specifically, right? Can I teach something to somebody, right? Like in lacrosse, I can show you the proper mechanics to throw the lacrosse ball. In wrestling, I can teach you the proper mechanics to, shoot a double leg takedown. Same with jiu-jitsu, same with math, same with science. Very rarely as fathers should we be teaching, but perhaps teaching our sons how to be curious and how to ask the right questions. Because when I ask the right questions and I teach them to be curious, I teach my son to be curious or my daughters to be curious, then they seek for understanding rather than to be understood.
Yeah.
And I think that need to be understood, can so very easily be triggered by that anger or that self-protection.
Yeah. And if
I certainly wasn't raised that way.
Well, and let's say, like your kids come to you with something that you're like, yeah, I'm not cool with that. And you shun them or you push that off. And now they're like, well, this was important to me. And like I said, maybe we don't know why it was important to them, but it just caught them off guard. We don't know what they're going through either. Right. Our kids are little adults.
Oh, absolutely. Right.
And
they're clones. There's a reason they're clones. They record everything we do.
Everything that you're doing.
Right.
And we don't know what they're going through. So like, I know that I'm pretty, high expectations of my children and of children around me, look them in the eyes and have a conversation with them, show them that you're interested in what they're talking about. Like you said, like, be curious, be curious. But I also want to be like, they come to me with something, it's upsetting. And man, if I push that away, if I tell them, nah, man, deal with that shit on your own. Suck it up. And they're like, I don't know how. And now they go into their armor. Maybe they had their armor on at that point. And now they can take the armor off and give it to me because I can share some of the burden.
Oh, absolutely.
Like what we do in jiu-jitsu. Like we share some of each other's burden.
Right.
Sometimes we share like good moments, bad moments, but a lot of times we're sharing energy. Yeah.
No, I think you're absolutely right? Being emotionally mature enough, knowing when you can be curious and when your curiosity will rub off on your children. Man, this reminds me of this story. Like I burnt a grilled cheese sandwich once when Cozy was like 2. And now to this day, she's 11 years old. Dad, don't burn that grilled cheese.
That's so funny.
Don't burn that grilled cheese.
So funny.
Don't burn it.
Yeah.
Don't burn it.
So funny.
Every time I'm like, you're 11 years old. I burned it once back in the day. Right? Like
that's what she remembers.
Yeah. That's what she remembers. They record this stuff. And so we must teach our children to be curious.
And how to deal with anger. Yeah. How to deal with those emotions that are scary, those emotions. Because like it's easy to deal with happiness. Like everybody can be happy together. Like you're stoked on something happens good for your children, and you're like, man, I'm stoked on that. They come to you with an angry thing and you're like, man, I don't even know how I would deal with that.
Yeah.
And now you're like, okay, this is how I would deal with it. Sometimes you knock it out of the park. Sometimes, man, you strike out and you're like, we failed a bunch, but you know what? We failed. We're not going to give up. We're going to come back to this thing again. We're going to circle back like how you always talk about. We're going to circle back.
Yep.
We're going to let this lie for a moment. We're going to circle back. We're going to talk about it again. We're going to give it some time to heal a little bit. And we're not going to dwell on it. We're not going to just keep chipping at it because we want to see some more of the scar and some more of that blood from the scab, right? And
it's like you're seeing into my soul.
I know. Well, and like that's the thing of some of the things that even you personally are going through that you and I having to learn to navigate because we don't want to make it worse for you.
Right.
And we also don't want to give fuel to make it worse, right?
Right. When you keep replaying the narrative, and this is what I'm learning, when you keep replaying the narrative, you're giving power to that story. I just listened to this Theo Vaughn and Tony Robbins. Look it up. They do a 20-minute session together, and it's just so cool because Tony Robbins like frames it very well. When we give energy to these stories, we give it power, right? Sure. When we put our thoughts therein lies the power that creates our reality. And so, I personally want to be curious enough about the anger that I'm able to expunge the sick, if you will, like an infected wound. Sure. Right. I want all of the nasty, staph to come out and whatever it is. I want to purify it and sit with it long enough, but it's painful.
Oh, super painful.
It's painful. Yeah.
And once, and our audience and our friends who listen to this, who are again, like solid, consistent listeners, and they listen to each podcast as we go on, and we tell our own version of these stories, and they put their own spin on it and their own, like what they're going through in this moment, and they can resonate with what we're talking about. And then you go, okay, well, what do I want to, how can I get better? How can I see through this anger? And a lot of it is remembering that what you're going through is what you're going through.
Yeah.
I don't have to like personalize and try to feel how Tyler's feeling. Right. What I need to know is like what you're going through is what you're going through. And maybe it's just sitting around hanging out, not talking about it. Maybe it is talking about it. Maybe it's taking that feeling, balling it up, giving it away to somebody. Let them carry the burden for a little while.
Right.
Let them carry it for a moment and take it off my shoulders for a minute.
And this is one thing I appreciate about you in our sauna sessions is that you'll often ask, like, do you want solutions or do you want me to just listen?
Yeah. Same with you.
Yeah, and I think that like there is some benefit to like sharing your story and just getting out, acknowledging it, right? Acknowledge it. Acknowledge that it happened. Acknowledge that you were hurt. Mm-hmm. Acknowledge that you failed. And realize that like failure is just your first attempt at learning.
Yeah.
Right? Like we can spin failure into something positive. It's going to take work. It's going to take putting those puzzle pieces together. And
like you said, pain. Not inflicting more pain on yourself.
No.
But like, it's going to be painful. Changing that whole thing, changing that narrative is going to suck in your brain for a little while. Yeah. You may have to sit some lonely nights up trying to figure out how this world is going to get, how you can see the world through crystal colored glasses again, diamond colored glasses. But for the most part, if we hold on to this anger, if we choose to hold on to this anger, it could be the end of us. These two men that had this road rage incident, and all of us, every single one of you can think of a moment that you've had a situation where I'm going to punch that person in the face. That person falls on the ground, hits their head, they die. You've just taken that person's life.
2 lives ruined.
2 lives ruined.
One ended and one ruined.
Gosh, man, like what are their kids going to go through? Both sides, like what are they going to go through?
Right.
And how can we become better as a community or as a society where we're like, hey, man, I just like the color of your eyes. I wasn't trying to cause trouble.
Oh, right.
Sorry. If you come in my personal space, I have some things I need to take care of.
Yeah.
Last night we did the coolest class that I've been at. And it was scenarios of people being like aggressive to you and how the self-defense actually works in that environment. It was really cool because Corey and I were both like, this is insane. This is crazy because this is how it works practically.
Dude, that's cool.
It was really cool.
I did something like that for back in Colorado. It's like an actual, this Navy SEAL taught it. His name is Jimmy. He literally, they put you in a box and they put you in a hood. Like they put a hood over your head and they pull up the hood and you now have to respond to the scenario that's happening. And this is primarily first, self-defense. So you have simunition. So you have actual live rounds or like light paint rounds that are simunition. and you have to assess the situation. One time it's just a guy asking for, directions on a map. Another time it's a guy like with a knife that just like is yelling at you, and you're like, and you gotta like, and it was one of the most intense trainings I've ever been through. It completely ruptured my whole nervous system. It shook it to its core, because it's like there's scenarios you never ever think you're going to be in.
Yeah. It was like a little like brain tiring, because you're trying to remember what move to do in this instance. And then like somebody said, well, what if they do this? And Mike was like, well, it's a different scenario. Right. You got to do this. And you're like, man, do I know what to do when shit hits the fan? Right. And so when you're practicing, man, you can practice like, okay, I'm angry right now. You can practice how to calm yourself down. Like you can breathe, you can find grace. You can find like, don't forget, I love you. Yeah. Don't forget, I love you. Don't forget, we're on the same fucking team, man. Right. I get you're pissed off, but don't fucking forget, we're on the same team.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like, absolutely. Hey, don't forget.
And that's the thing that you just said it, competence, right? Like since I joined jiu-jitsu, I have some competence in my skill. Right? Like I don't need to pick a fight.
Yeah.
I don't need to pick a fight. Chances are, if we are in an aggressive situation, I don't need to pick a fight. I'm seeing through you. I'm
gonna walk away.
I'm seeing through you. I'm like 4 or 5 steps ahead of the situation. I know what's going on. Yeah. And now at this point, it's just me controlling what's coming out of my mouth.
Yeah, for sure. Not to escalate the situation.
Because trust me, I would love to test my skill. That's why I compete. That's why I go to the gym.
Yeah.
But no, I am in control. I have that benevolence.
Yeah.
And I don't, because I have the competence, I don't need to posture. I don't need to posture.
Yeah, I can just walk away. Sorry, man. And after that, after we did that thing, then we did, so a Shark Tank is what it's called. Do you remember when we did that?
Yeah.
So, and the people there last night were Adam, Kenny, Nate, and Henry, the younger kid.
I don't know that I know Henry.
The little blonde kid in Lehigh, the little tough kid. He's 15, 16 years old. He's built like a brick.
Yeah.
And then me, right? Uh-huh. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to survive with all these guys that are bigger than me? And like, I was like, okay, man, so what I thought to myself was, fight strategically. Yeah. Maybe my fight, Mike had talked about this, maybe my fight isn't to win the battle, because sometimes I get stuck in that thing, right?
Yeah.
We're like, what, are you trying to win this fight? Like, motherfucker, are you trying to win this fight? Like, maybe we're just not winning. Maybe we're just talking.
Yeah.
Right? And so I thought, like, okay, strategically, how am I going to fight each one of them? And I quickly assessed, how am I going to fight each one? And I was like, okay, do not waver. Do not waver.
Yeah.
If you see an opportunity,
competence,
let's go. Yes. Let's find it, right? And so putting that into perspective for how you can do it with anger is like, okay, man, can you deal with it right then? Is this person somebody you're willing to what if things escalate and you're both fighting for something that just means nothing?
Right.
I didn't use my blinker.
Right.
Sorry. What if I just said sorry? What if I just said sorry to you? Instead of like, man, no, I'm fighting for what I want to fight for. What if I just said sorry? What if I just was like, all right, sorry, I'm going to go to training tomorrow. I'm going to get a good training in, and then it'll get out of my system, right? And how you teach your children that is the same thing. Like, to just be like, is this worth fighting? Is it worth it? If it's worth it, okay, cool. Because then guess what? The relationship is going to survive on the other end.
Right. I'll fight for you, but I won't fight over you. That's my philosophy. Yeah. That's my philosophy right there. You want to know if it's a threat or not? Like, I won't fight over you. I'll fight for you.
Yeah, for sure.
And if there's no interest there, then I'm moving on. I'm seeing right through you.
Yeah, going through there, and it's a work in progress, right? Like, we want to be organic and like continue to make this the evolution of things working on, and I appreciated my friend telling me, hey, you should talk about this, and then I'd like to just, Micah, I appreciate you, Micah, I know you're going to be listening. And he was the one that was telling me about the, the road rage thing. And then I had seen the road rage incidents and then the anger and how to deal with anger and how we process it. Cause I don't know, like I'm definitely not an instructor of how to process anger.
No.
I'm a learner. I'm a follower of my discipline. I'm a follower of who I am as a person, and knowing that like some fights are just not worth it.
Yeah.
And I also know that, I'm guilty of, escalating to a point where I'm like, damn it, did it need to go that far?
Well, that's our ego, right? That's our ego. And when we, because I think we all are, I'm certainly no different, right? Like there's this instinctual need to protect yourself.
Yeah.
And we have to fool our own reptilian brain.
Yeah.
When we feel like we need to protect ourselves in some of these scenarios, we're not really in a life or death situation.
For sure.
Even though everything in our body is telling us that it is.
Yeah, you get out there, you get out of your car with some guy that you don't know, and now you are actually in a life or death situation.
Right.
Like, was it necessary?
Yeah.
Was that necessary?
I'll tell you what, if my kids are in my car, I'm not pulling over.
No.
I'll pull into the fire station.
That's what I think.
I'll pull into the police department.
I'll pull into a police department, a fire station.
Everything is, my kids are in the car. I'm working on de-escalating.
Yeah, I'm trying my hardest to be like, no, man, it's cool. Wave, sorry.
Position over submission.
Agreed.
Right? That's classic.
I agree with you. Yeah, I'm not pulling to a neighborhood and squaring off with you because I don't know, man. Like,
you don't know if that person has a gun. They don't have a weapon.
Yeah. I would just implore everybody, man, like take that shit seriously. Like right now, especially,
summer, it's getting hot.
Summer, hot. Yeah, go and enjoy your family. Go out and like bust your ass, work your asses off. But then, man, go enjoy your family. The people around you, make sure that you have the right people around you. Make sure you have the right tribe around you. Mm-hmm. If people are encouraging that kind of bullshit, that alpha male aggressive, I'm tougher than you because I look like this and I'm built like this. Like, man, that's a facade.
Yeah.
Like, just be nice. Why can't you just be nice?
Send those people on up to Park City Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, right. Watch some monster come in there and kick the shit out of all of us.
Hey, well,
right.
I have faith in the academy.
Yeah,
I have faith in the academy. There's always going to be somebody.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
It doesn't matter how big you are, but like, it's true. Like I've felt that need to posture.
Yeah.
We felt that need to posture. It generally comes from the weakest parts of me, the most insecure parts of me.
For sure.
The parts that I need to love more.
Agreed. What you got going on the rest of the week?
Man, it's summertime. We're working, staying home mom. Let's see. Sat in the river with Jesse today.
Nice.
Yeah, ran into him at the river.
Sick.
So got to congratulate him on his firefighting skills.
That was so sick, dude. Congratulations, Jesse. He showed me a picture yesterday. That was so cool. I think 3 or 4 teenagers he saved.
Yeah, he was telling me the story, and I was
up and down the ladder 20 times or some shit like that.
We kind of talked about it a little bit, and then
cool.
Those are the kind of fires, like that kind of fire, like that makes you want to be a firefighter. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah, like every once in a while you'll get one that you're just like, that's it. That's why I did it. That's why I did it.
Yeah.
And for him, that was like one of those.
Stoked.
Yeah. So just training. I made some changes to my schedule at the rink. I've decided to just cut my hours in general. We are hiring. If you're looking for some extra cash, come make some ice. Maybe you'll go to the Olympics. Maybe you'll work in the show. Maybe you'll go to the show. I need to reprioritize myself a little bit. And
so what you got going on the rest of the summer?
So I cut my hours at the rink.
Oh, good.
I'm trying to work on myself a little bit more. It's hot out there, floating the river. You
can train a little bit more.
I'm trying to train a little bit more.
Prioritize just some things that you need to take care of.
Yeah, my kids are out of school, so good. I want to make sure that we're doing fun things. Cool. I don't know. I got this buddy who's got a bus. We were supposed to go sell stuff at farmers markets. So I mean, just trying to get out and get outside. And
so so by this one we come in, we'll do this one, and we will not have done the Father's Day. So you'll have. On the next one, we'll be able to talk about your going out to Colorado.
Yeah, I'm headed out to Colorado for a week to do the celebration of life for Nick. Super excited about that. I'm going to MC.
I heard.
I've got to figure that out.
Stoked.
It'll
be a good turnout, man.
We've already got 200 plus people registered.
What?
Yeah. So we've got a big venue planned.
Dude. Well, that'll be like a culmination of things, and it'll be tough, and you guys will rally around each other and around the boys and Casey. Good, man. So.
And then you've got stuff coming up.
Yeah, we leave to Colorado on Friday. We're going out to Grand Junction to see Cody Jinks. This is my Cody Jinks hat. Independent as fuck. That's what it says. I'm so stoked on it. Man, just trying to wrap up summer camp, making sure I cover all my bases on that. The bus, man, we pulled all the inside out of the bus. So good looking on it. I'm so lucky that I got that thing, man. It's such good condition. So doing the paddleboard fest. Are you going to come up there for that?
I think I have the paddle fest off. Sick. I don't know if I have my kids.
We're camping that weekend.
I would like to. That's one of the things I'm like, I put it on my calendar.
Yeah.
I just switched everything on the ice rink. So I'm like, okay, now I got to go back and backfill.
Cool.
So I'd like to.
Yeah. Shout out to Trent and Park City Soup if you're looking for to do any kind of stand-up paddleboarding. They're on Deer Valley Resort, right on the base of Deer Valley. So if you go up to Deer Valley in Park City, there's a little man-made lake there with a beach, and they rent out paddleboards. Cool. It's cool. You're always over there listening to reggae music, and they have one boards over there, and it's kind of cool. So shout out Trent and Carla. Man, just try to keep growing this whole platform. I'm stoked when we get people telling us that they listen to us all consistently and how excited they are for that. So training a lot and hopefully get these guys ready for the fights. That's the goal right now, is to get these guys ready.
Get them ready. Yeah. Cool. Try to hit as much training as possible.
Cool, man.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate you. Appreciate your friendship. Yep. Appreciate your honesty.
Yeah.
Same. Appreciate your mentorship, man.
Same.
Wouldn't be the same person without you.
Same, dude. Yeah.
So thank you.
Appreciate it.
Hey, cheers, everybody.
Rise up, don't turn it back.